By the markings on top of this plate, it looks as if something had once sat atop it. Maybe, I don't know, jostled loose in space or knocked over.
Hello survivors and welcome to Survivor's Guild, the only channel that determines your odds of surviving 2011's alien smoking apparatus, Evil Bong 3, The Wrath of Bong. So stay tuned till the end for your survival stats. I'm your sharp-dressed slasher turned amateur astronaut, GhostFake. Now I hope you like being covered in your best friend's baby batter, cause this movie is getting spoiled. Evil Bong 3, Wrath of Bong, written by Patrick Klepek, Domonic Muir, and Kent Roudebush, and directed by Charles Band, starring John Patrick Jordan, Mitch Eakins, Brian Lloyd, Peter Stickles, Sonny Carl Davis, Jacob Witkin, Amy Paffrath, Christina DeRosa, Michelle Mais, and Circus-Szalewski. Evil Bong 3 is about Larnell, Brett, Bachman, and Alistair as they face an evil bong from another world. We open up to a meteor hurtling towards Earth, and we cut over to Earth where we get introduced to this dude as he buries his dead wife. But don't cry for him, there is no love lost here, and he probably killed her.
Good luck to Satan. That poor son of a bitch has to deal with your nagging ass.
Sending his wife off the hard way at deposit number 1 before he takes her jewelry. But don't worry, she's not gonna need it where she's going. And notices a fiery object in the sky. He finds where it landed and notices some sort of moss growing on it, which he then gives the old taste test, before the meteor exposes itself as some sort of spacecraft, revealing the pilot paraphernalia, which he believes will be of some value.
This is the luckiest day of my life.
And he leaves the scene of the hash. Sometime later, an imposter Alistair, that's double the amount of imposter, shows up to the hash site working for the Space Institute, having tracked the trajectory of the meteor before it crashed. He takes note of the growth and grabs a sample, before noting the metal element making up the object, before he gets jumped by Larnell in a ninja costume. Hey, that's cultural appropriation. Before the two recognize each other. Well, kinda. It's hard to recognize an imposter of an imposter.
Larnell? Al? You look different.
We then find out that Larnell has also been tracking the intergalactic object, before they notice the familiar smell emanating from the spacecraft. The familiar smell of marijuana. Cut over to this head shop where our suspicious widower shows up to hawk his newfound bong, which Bachman identifies immediately.
Looks like some kind of space bong.
That's exactly right.
Before he identifies this weird dude's dry mouth. And that, survivors, is why you don't taste test moss growing on space debris. But before Bachman can buy the bong, Brett berates him for not using his brain. Ha! Say that 5 times fast. He accuses the man of trying to rip them off and reminds him of what kind of shop they are.
Hey, Pud Knocker. This is a head shop, not a pawn shop.
He offers to sell it for $50 and Brett lowballs him.
$50.
50? I'll pay you 20 for it.
That's exactly what I'd expect a pawn shop to say. He reluctantly agrees to the deal, but before they pay him, they ask what his glove is all about and force him to show them his hand, revealing the green mossy substance from the spaceship that's growing on his tongue and growing on his hand. And then the man leaves. Bachman then grabs the bong and takes it to the back for some product testing. He fires up the bong and it begins talking to him, telling him that he is the first step towards world domination.
You are a worm.
Before transferring Bachman to Bong World, Intergalactic Edition, where he is greeted by nude glowing green girls. Cut back over to the real world where Alistair and Larnell have arrived at the head shop, answering Brett's call to come take a look at the suspicious bong that the suspicious dude sold them. And as Alistair postulates that the bong might actually be from another world, Brett heads to the back to find Bachman. And while he's in the back, Luann shows up looking for Brett, and we find out that Luann and Brett have been separated for some time now. And she leaves her number with the boys and a message for Brett, and then she leaves. Brett comes back out, and we find out that Brett broke things off with Luann after he lost all the weight and got a restraining order against her, after she proved to be a handful. Rabbit then enters the movie, having continued on his life in service to the Lord, and Larnell tries to point out the perversion of the papacy.
The Pope himself has been abducted and probed.
Or maybe he's the one doing the probing. But Rabbit is convinced, for now, that he's on the right path. Brett notices the mossy growth from the suspicious guy growing on the counter where he put his hand. And while the 3 bros discuss the space moss, Rabbit sneaks away with the bong to the back. And Alistair notices that the small sample that he took from the hash site has multiplied and filled the bag. In the back, Rabbit lights up and the bong bashes his stash.
This herb is of inferior quality.
Before transporting Rabbit to Alien Bong World, the trio come to the back just in time to see Rabbit get transported and try to figure out why they keep coming into contact with these weird bongs, and that maybe this is another situation that calls for EB. And Alistair says that though they left her deep in the Amazon, he's pretty certain that Larnell's grandpa Cyril has possession of her, before Larnell explains that he's been keeping tabs on Cyril, and that he's turned over a new leaf.
Let's just say that Gramps has turned over a new leaf.
Cut over to the Alien Bong world where Rabbit gets approached by some of the glowing naked alien ladies, and he accepts his fate.
Well, Lord, if it is that other place, let my punishment begin.
He runs into Bachman, who tells Rabbit that this isn't heaven or hell, but rather some sort of bro-batter factory where they have been extracting his man milk ever since he got there, and just to embrace what is going to happen to him.
Brother, that fills me with a horror that you cannot even imagine.
We cut back to the real world, where Cyril, who now calls himself Dr. Weed, has entered the building with his assistant, Nurse Hookah. They explain to him the potential invasion that they are facing, and offer to prove it. They show him the alien Bong in the back, but the alien Bong won't talk.
Not cool. Bong's being a total D-bag.
Total D-bag.
And he mistakes it for a cheap movie prop. Yep. But he's unconvinced by the mute Bong, so they show him the cosmic weed growing on the counter, before they ask if he still has EB, and that they'll need her in order to defeat the evil alien Bong. It turns out that he does still have her, and he takes her out of the bag and puts her on the counter.
Ah, hell no! Not those crazy white boys again.
She takes notice of the moss on the counter and recognizes it to be some sort of cosmic cannabis, and mentions that they could make a killing slinging this stuff on the streets. They bring out the alien Bong to see if EB can provoke it to speak, which of course it works. The Bong explains its master plan before the crew put it back and make a plan of attack with Cyril, before Cyril takes over, having Nurse Hookah take Brett as a hostage, telling them that he will stay behind while they smoke from the alien Bong and go on a reconnaissance mission inside Alien Bong world. But much like the boys, even EB doesn't trust Cyril either, knowing him to be a swindler and a douche, worrying that once Cyril has the interplanetary pot, he'll just leave EB and go off on his own. But EB agrees anyway to go to the Alien Bong world with the boys, and they head to the back to smoke from the evil alien Bong.
You repulse me! Take me, you worm!
Larnell smokes from it and gets transported to the Alien Bong world, before Alistair smokes from it in the name of scientific discovery. And finally, the Alien Bong absorbs EB. Larnell discovers Rabbit, hooked up to a mayonnaise extracting device, and he asks him where Bachman is, before bailing on Rabbit to find his friend. Cut over to Alistair, who is taking notes of the Alien Bong world as he attempts to make sense of his new setting, in an attempt to document his trip as much as possible, before he notices the gallons of guy goo that have been harvested, blissfully unaware of what horrors are actually in those jugs.
The smell is unpleasant and pronounced, to say the least.
Just then, he gets snuck up on by one of the glowing women, who begins seducing him. Cut back over to Larnell, who has discovered Bachman, now covered in a layer of otherworldly weed, and EB warns him not to touch him, and when Larnell asks what they've done to him, he explains that they've milked him out of all of his dude dairy.
His meat flute ain't playing no more tunes, baby!
And EB explains that maybe they are harvesting the human reproductive material to create human hybrids with the goal of taking over Earth, and Larnell leaves to go find Alistair, to ask him what they should do. He finds Al, secured to a machine that is siphoning his seed.
Oh, they got you by the groin, man.
Cut over to Earth, where Cyril has been convinced of the Bong's benevolent plan to take over the world, believing that if he assists the Bong, it will treat him with mercy when it takes over. Brett breaks free of Nurse Hookah and bludgeons her over the head with a baseball bat, before smoking from the Bong to go save his friends. He finds Rabbit, who has been boned dry, and they set off to find the others. They find Bachman, now overgrowing with the intergalactic ganja, and the three of them go to find Alistair, and Brett goes ham on the jugs of Pearl Jam in spite of Rabbit's cries for him to wait, covering himself in his bro's batter.
Oh, sick! All these aliens are sick!
Larnell shows up and the group look for a way to free Alistair, and EB appears and shares with them that Al is hooked up to a more powerful seed siphon, as they recognize his intelligence may be useful to them. More useful than what they siphoned from Rabbit and Bachman, that's for sure. Larnell tries to free Al, but his attempt garners the attention of the alien women, and Larnell goes all patriarchy on them, finally exercising his karate skills. And he then frees Al by yanking the wanking device off of him. EB tells them that it's time to destroy the alien Bong, and they come up with a plan to smoke Bachman's growth to reverse the process of what got them there in the first place, because it's an Evil Bong movie, and the last thing it needs is to make sense, which works because the second that they light up the Bachman strain, the glowing girls explode, and they begin rolling a Bachman joint for him to smoke, causing the evil alien Bong to explode, transporting the group back to the real world. The group cleans up and kicks back to recover from their ordeal, when Brett gets a text from Luann, who wants to make up. She shows up at the shop, and while those two head to the front to talk things over, Felicity shows up with pizza to prove that she's still in this franchise. Meanwhile, up front, Brett talks to Luann about how she treated him at his largest, and that she doesn't deserve him at his best, and that her attraction to him seems shallow at best, and it appears to be based on looks alone. She promises to do better, and Brett disrobes, revealing his body covered in moss, and she runs away.
What's wrong, baby cakes?
Cut over to Cyril and Nurse Hookah, who have stumbled upon a field of weed at the crash site, and the movie ends. Now let's take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine your odds of surviving this movie. We start off our meat bank deposits with this dude's dead wife that he definitely killed, opening the movie and wrapping up our meat bank deposits at number 1, into the meat bank. Now let's take a look at our survivors. We've got Alistair, Larnell, Brett, Bachman, Rabbit, Luann, Felicity, Cyril, Nurse Hookah, and this dude, which means that out of a total of 11 characters, only 1 dies, giving you a 90.9% chance of surviving this movie. Given those odds, how many evil bongs would you have to encounter before you give up weed? Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time on my channel, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And a huge thanks to my patrons for helping finance our assault against the alien invasion. The world seriously appreciates it. And as always guys, thanks and don't die.